Let's call this meeting to order, please. And we'll call on Mr. Mark Weston to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you this day for the opportunity we have to meet together as a planning commission. We are thankful for the area in which we live and for the time that we get to spend efforting on behalf of this city and for the citizens here. Please help us that we can be wise and mindful of all parties involved. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner. Any communications or appearances? Well, there's nobody in the audience, so we can anything from staff.
Not at this time. We're hoping a few people show up for items. They've all been told, so
Well, then,
especially applicants. Yes.
yep, we will open our working agenda with item A1, a public hearing to consider a proposed PDZ zone amendment and site plan application for the undeveloped property on the corner of Lava Flow Drive and Santa Clara Drive, adjacent to the Heritage Point Townhomes. The applicant, Keith Reber, proposes to develop the site to include a 5,000 square foot office building. The subject property being parcel SC 6215326 is 0.64 acres in size.
Thank you, Chair Hendrickson. I have to be careful here because there's two Marks, so Weston and Hendrickson, and they're side by side this evening. So if I mess once or twice, forgive me. I do
It'll
that
be
with
easy.
I do that with my kids as well. The applicant, Ken Reber, is on the phone or on our call, on our Zoom. We have worked with a couple of architects. He's been working with a Jeff Mathis and a Sarah Schultz. I don't see them or I don't see them on the Zoom call, but I'll go ahead and make the presentation and that should go well. And then we'll see if Keith has anything to add. You indicated that he is the applicant. He's a foot and ankle doctor or podiatrist. The building, as you can see on the site plan here, is just under 5,000 square feet in size. He's looking to have two office spaces. One is a medical space and one may be a dental use of just under 2,500 square feet in size. As you can see, this is a corner piece in front of the Heritage Point Townhomes that's currently under construction, about 90% complete. And this is on the northeast corner of Lava Flow Drive and Santa Clara Drive. And I say that because when you go across the street, it turns into Warrior Way. So this side of the street is Lava Flow, and then the road changes names as it works its way northward. And so I gave you a copy of the original plan for the Heritage Point Townhomes that included the two commercial pads as well as the townhome units itself on the interior. The Planning Commission may recollect that last spring and summer, we granted PDC amendment and site plan approval for Country Lane Commons, Rick Schofield, on the corner of Country Lane and Santa Clara Drive. Recently, we've had discussions with Rick and he's looking to move forward on that project in the next month or two to break ground. We have construction drawings that have been submitted to us. We've been reviewing those. It's going to be a nice building. He's still working with Orange Peel and some other tenants trying to get some letters of intent put in place for that project. So this is the other commercial piece that's owned PDC. That was part of that. As you recall, Sitla comes to mind. This was Sitla property at one time, way back when. So our development code, chapter 1768, is our planned development zone, in this case, PDR, and it goes through different requirements that a project needs to be reviewed under for a PDC plan amendment. And I'm going to go through those. So as far as the site layout, we talk about the access, primary access coming off of Santa Clara Drive. I did make a mistake in the staff report. It's not Sage Drive, it's Heritage Drive that loops all the way around. There is a Sage, but this is Heritage, is what the sign says, that provides access off of Santa Clara. A secondary access may be gained off of Lava Flow, the back part into the project, but the building has no frontage to that area, so it's not really likely that people would gain primary access from that point. One other thing is the plan I have, we had multiple plans that were submitted, and we're trying to avoid showing the same stuff over and over again. This plan has been updated to show a 5-foot sidewalk right here. So in these areas, this connection or sidewalk to the sidewalk along Santa Clara Drive, as well as the interior, will be a 5-foot sidewalk to meet ADA requirements. And so that is being put in place. A dumpster enclosure will be put in place here. It will be outside of the minimum 10-foot setback, 10-foot landscape setback area. So it sets further into the project and outside of that required minimum landscape buffer. I just want to go to the building itself. It's quite nice, and I'm going to have to reduce the size here. So hang with me for just a minute so you can see it, and I'll minimize this. So it is very nice, the building that they're proposing. This would be the east elevation as you're driving west into Santa Clara. And so this is what you would see from the east. And so the building materials are nice. It really is kind of a timeless design. They're proposing light gray and dark gray, brick veneer. It's a Coronado used brick, metal awnings and window treatments and cable supports, and then architectural metal right here, which is a dusty gray. So if I scroll down, you can see each of the elevations here. So this would be the east elevation that we just discussed, which would have a sign on the face of the building for each practitioner. This is the north elevation. So really the materials oriented towards the street where you get a lot of view. And then this is the west elevation off of Lava. And then this would be the south elevation facing Heritage Point. And then again, we have a materials board here. You can see the metal panel, stucco colors, the brick, and the aluminum. And then the parapet is also stucco. It's a white color, and that's been extended higher to screen the rooftop mechanical equipment. Now, I want to go to their landscape plan briefly. We believe they've done a good job with the landscape plan. They've hired a landscape architect, the same one that did the plan for Country Lane Commons. So in reviewing the landscape plan, it's a preliminary review, but it does look to meet the water efficient landscaping and conservation standards. They are proposing just over 11,000 square feet in landscape area. Now, of course, that's not all lawn or sod, a lot of drought tolerant desert scape with drips, but 39% of the site would be non-pervious versus the impervious parking lot and everything else. Outdoor lighting, we've talked about that with them. They can do some wall packs, but the lights themselves, we don't have a schematic, but the code allows a 16-foot light standard, indirect hooded light source, and that's required in the development code. And that's so we don't have light spill to adversely impact surrounding business. Required to do that. Getting a little feedback on online. So, okay. Now the required parking, they show 31 parking spaces, which is over code. The code would require a minimum of 20 parking spaces. So they're showing 31 spaces, including, and that includes 2 ADA spaces that you see here and here that are van accessible. So we have an ADA space right up front, 2 of them. Providing access to both of those entries or both practitioners. So that's good. No project fencing is proposed for the commercial site plan. The existing townhome project, Heritage Point, does have some fencing. Project signage, they did show us some signage that they would like to have on the building elevations. So you can get a feel for the building wall itself. And so that east elevation, like we've discussed, you would see that there would be a wall sign for the doctor and the dentist, if that's what ends up being there. And then we would also have a monument sign out on the corner of Lava and Santa Clara Drive. Now that's for reference only at this point in time. Later on, the applicant will come back with a final sign package for our review and approval to the Planning Commission, because this is a PDC zone. The wall signs and the monument sign require Planning Commission approval, and we do that later on in the process when we have that fully developed, and that's an item that would come back to you. Water availability, they need to work with the Conservancy District to obtain a will serve letter or other verified documentation. And then dust control, we talk about having a dust control plan on the site, especially in the summer months when that south wind kicks up. We want to make sure we don't have a blowing dust problem in the area. Now, we sent notices out to property owners within 300 feet, and we also posted the property. If you've driven by, you've seen our new banners as well as the signs that indicate what's being proposed on the site. So we're completely compliant with state code. We've not received any responses as at this time. It does comply with the general plan. This is a Main Street commercial. I'm sorry, this is a PDC zone, which complies or with the Main Street commercial land use district of the general plan. So we're in compliance there with what's being proposed. And then in state code consideration, section 10-9A-205 includes requirement for a map amendment or PDC amendment. We're in compliance with that. Like I said, we've sent notices out, we posted it. So planning staff's reviewed that. We're in compliance. So at this time, the planning staff recommendation would be that the planning commission forward a positive recommendation to the city council for a PDC zone amendment and site plan approval for the Keith Reber Medical Office Building as per the conditions as outlined in the staff report. And we have 12 conditions, and basically these conditions are just matching up with the standards that we've gone through and discussed to get a good plan and to get it done according to our development standards and city codes. So that's all the comments I have at this point in time. I'll turn it back to you, Chair, and we can see if the applicant or his or her representative have any comments. I'm not sure if they're with us tonight or not.
Mr. Mathis did grace us with his presence. And President Reber, have you got any comments from the phone?
No, I think he did a great job of presenting that. I don't really have anything to add to that. Thank you.
We'll go back to the public hearing then and open it to the public, to the audience. We have anybody that needs to make a comment? I'll remind you to please state your name, your address, and also if you have comments, to not repeat repetitively over and over what someone else has said tonight. I'll open the hearing now. Anything online coming in?
We do not. We just have Mr. Reber on, and he's already spoke.
Well, I don't know. Do we have a timer we can turn over and see how long we need to keep it open, or
About this long.
about this long?
I think you're good if no
All
one.
right, well, with that, we'll close our public hearing and go to business portion for discussion from the commission. Any questions from the commission members?
I do have a question. Is there a reason not to have like a bigger building, not have excess parking?
Hello, Commission. Good looking crew up there. It's been a minute since I've been here.
We're going to need you to state your name and address for the record.
You betcha. Jeff Mathis, 73 East 100 South, St. George, Utah. I'm the architect with this job, MRW Design Associates, representing Keith Reber, the owner. So the question, it's kind of more just to Mr. Blake, how the site laid out. I mean, they didn't want a very large building, but we felt like putting it on that west corner was the right spot. So we're pushed right up against the setbacks on all those sides. And the doctor did request having as much parking as he could get. So, I mean, really, that's kind of what drove it. Our access is limited to this site. And again, just trying to meet the requirements they want to have.
Okay. I was just curious why have so much extra, not just make the building bigger, but
It balances the corner pretty well.
it makes sense.
If I could just make a comment, Keith Reber. Yeah, for a medical building, the parking seems to be a premium. By the time we get staff and doctors and assistants plus patients, the parking's always a premium. So we wanted to err on more parking rather than less.
Yeah.
With regards to parking, will there be a concern with some of the heritage townhome visitors that may be visiting for the weekend parking in the parking location?
Well, Mr. Everett, if you'd like to respond, we really haven't discussed this.
My discussion with Wes, the developer of this, who we also bought the property from, is that he seemed to indicate, and I that there would not be, that if there were, that they would handle that. But I'm hoping that it looks like they've got some parking right across the street that's for visitors. Looks like there's 6 spaces there. They have several of those around the project. So I'm hoping that the excess parking wouldn't encroach upon our parking lot.
And you can see that on that plan. I gave you the excess parking they do have for their amenity area. And it is a public street, so there is room to park vehicles on that street. So if that becomes an issue, that's something the applicant or building owner would have to take up with the homeowners association for the project.
Is that something Mr. Reber could post as private parking in there, or parking for?
Yes, oh yes.
Parking, he could do.
Yes, he can have some signage that says parking for business purposes or for the doctor and dentist only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions from our commission?
Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. With that, do I have a motion from the commission?
Let's see.
I can do it. I move that we recommend approval for the to City Council for the PDC zone amendment for the Keith Reber Medical Office Building, subject to the conditions as presented in the staff report.
Second.
I have a motion from Logan and a second from Shelley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? That carries. Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Mr. Reber, Mr. Mathis.
Thank you.
All right, moving into our next public hearing, working from the working agenda, item 2. Consider a proposed general plan amendment application for property located at approximately 2276 Arrowhead Trail. Parcels is listed and described at 1.48 acres. Split Rock Construction is proposing a general plan amendment from low density residential LDR and Main Street commercial to MSC to medium density residential MDR for the property. The proposed general plan amendment is a part of the process to allow for a single family residential subdivision. Staff?
Thank you, Chair Henderson. So Split Rock is the applicant, and this is one we recently discussed a month or so ago, a different application for both a general plan amendment and rezoning. At this time, we're moving forward with just the general plan amendment application only. And if this proceeds through the process and gains approval, the applicant would then go through the second process, which is the rezoning of the property to an R16 zone to accommodate the single family subdivision use that they would like. The applicant, so let's take a step back. Currently, we have a split general plan designation on the property like we've talked about recently. We have low density residential and Main Street commercial. The applicant is asking that the general plan be amended to allow for medium density residential rather than what's currently on the property. The applicant, and I've put it on the overhead, has submitted a concept plan. This is basically for reference only to give the Planning Commission an idea of what may be developed on the property. It is a concept plan. Concept plan is not required with a general plan amendment when you're doing an R1 type of zone, single family residential. That is required, the concept plan or project plan, a lot more detail for an PD zone like we saw last time. So they have submitted that. We've asked them to do so the residents could get an idea or feel what could be developed there. So that's why we have this before you. Now, the proposed general plan amendment to medium density residential would allow for a range of 3 to 12 dwelling units per acre. However, the applicant intends to develop a single-family subdivision with 7 lots. That equates to a density of 4.76 units per acre. If the general plan amendments approved, the applicant would then move forward with a property rezoning to the R16 zone. We have sent notices to property owners within 300 feet and posted the property like we did last time. As of today, we have not received any responses from the neighborhood or the public. I'd like to go through the general plan briefly on what it says. So we have the LDR, which is in place right now, and the land uses state a suburban type of density allowing primarily single-family detached homes with a density range of 2 to 4 units per acre. And then the description for the Main Street commercial, which the northern half of the property is currently designated, states predominantly commercial uses on the ground level, including uses such as stores, restaurants, and offices with residences and or offices on 2nd and 3rd floors. So the MDR description that the applicant has requested, medium density residential, says single family structures and townhomes on small lots with a density range of 3 to 12 units per acre. So we need to reference the general plan on a few things here. The appropriate land use transitions, and we talked about this before. The general plan encourages gradual transition in housing types and densities, especially near mixed use, commercial developments along arterials and at major intersections to ensure compatibility with adjacent existing development. And then section 3.3 of the general plan includes residential density ranges and average density. And it states the following: the city will consider granting higher density in the range relative to demonstrated significant public benefits to be achieved by the project. In most areas, the density designation may be considered an overall average to be achieved by using a mix of unit types and or lot sizes within the range. For example, in the MDR, the average of 5 units per acre could be achieved by mixing single-family homes with townhomes. So in this case, the density proposed is about 4.76. So it's right around that 5 units per acre. And then section 3.31 gets into those density transitions. We went through this the last time, but in general, gradual higher densities are encouraged near mixed-use commercial developments along arterials and at major intersections. Land uses and building types on both sides of the street should be similar. Transitions between land use size and type of building should occur in the middle of the block rather than the middle of the street. So we have single family across the street, and this would be single family facing directly to the north on the other side of the street. And then we do have section 8.11, the general plan on street classifications. It's just me again indicating that both Arrowhead Trail and a portion of Lava Flow are identified as local streets. Local streets are generally put in place to function for single family homes or residential type densities. So the new application and previous decision, I've had a chance to review this with city legal counsel and city staff. We've discussed the proposed general plan amendment application. We believe that the proposed general plan amendment application is in harmony with the existing single family neighborhood. Previously, we recommended that the applicant consider developing the site as a small lot single family subdivision per the recently adopted R16 zone. On January 12, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended denial of the previous general plan amendment and rezoning application as per city staff's recommendation. Then on January 25th, 2023, the City Council denied the general plan amendment and rezoning application. So that legislative decision was made by the council that evening, and it was for denial. Our state code considerations: we meet all statute requirements for an application of this type, general plan amendment. We've determined that all state code requirements have been met. Our planning staff recommendation is as follows. We recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval for the proposed general plan amendment to the City Council for property located at approximately 2276 Arrowhead Trail. We have 3 parcel or tax ID numbers associated with this piece, but it's described as 1.48 acres, subject to the following. And first, that the proposed general plan amendment complies with section 2.5 of the general plan. That's appropriate land use transitions. Second, that the proposed general plan amendment complies with section 3.3 of the general plan, residential density ranges and average density. Third, that the proposed general plan complies with section 3.31 of the general plan, density transitions. Fourth, that the proposed general plan amendment complies with section 8.11, table 7 of the general plan, Santa Clara Street classification system. And fifth and last, that the proposed general plan amendment, the medium density residential land use designation is in harmony with the existing single family neighborhood. And so that's what I have to present to the Planning Commission this evening. I'll turn the time over to you, Chair Henderson.
Okay, we'll go to the audience for comments. And again, reminding you to state your name and your address for the record for any comment from the public hearing side of things, and also keep your comments concise and do please not repeat the same thing over and over. Audience? Y'all are making this way too easy tonight. Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing, go back to our agenda, and let me get back to where I need to be because I have to have my cheat sheet. We have any questions for the applicant from the commission regarding this? See the engineers here present. Do you have anybody online, Selena, from the applicant?
We do not.
Okay. Any questions?
I do have a question for the applicant. Mr. Bates.
Jared Bates with Rosenberg Associates.
I was just wondering about, I know we're going for R16, but the city already has an R110 zoning. And to me, I mean, obviously you can't count the street in this development. That would be something you could count, and if it was a brand new, you could count it. Does this almost work, or is this close to being close to the R110 with lot size averaging? I know the density is not there because it's at 4 or something, but
You know, we didn't look at it that way because I think because of the odd size of the parcel and because of its location, we felt like the smaller lots would be a better fit as far as the cost of the lot versus what they think they could sell for it. But like this was a better fit for the parcel. I think we took the recommendation of.
no, I understand that. I'm just looking at this and like there's a couple of big lots in there that are flag lots or whatever, but there's a few that it seems like it almost might fit in that zoning. Not saying that would want you to do that zoning, but just to kind of sell it, I guess, would be that it almost is an R110 with lot size averaging. If you could count the roads and everything, but you can't, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of close. I mean, the first 4 are, 0.16. So they're really close to R16. The back one, the ones that are on the corner, lot 6, and then 2 and 3, they're big because of the weird shapes and because of the flag lot and the topography on that north side. Where like we make those big so you can actually do something with it. So
Yeah, you have 5 of the 7 lots that are R16. Our next zone is R110, and we don't do any averaging. It's a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. So the big lots are the flag lots that would have excess for perhaps a larger home. Is that the thinking, Jared?
yeah, and then again to account for the elevation changes that are out there. That way we'll have a bunch of big walls and stuff too. That'd be the thing that'd be the challenge.
So overall better land yield.
Yeah, they're bigger in the back, but because you have the topography issues, it kind of balances itself out.
Also, when we created the R16, the intent is it could be used for properties like this that are infill properties that are a little difficult to design and lay out. And so staff is in support of the R16.
And potentially, cheaper than an R110 lot too, because those have a harder time selling these as the R110 versus R16, I think too.
Definitely leaning more towards the affordable housing.
Yeah,
I applaud them for that.
I would agree with that too.
Did I get your question?
Yeah.
So not having an actual, we're not approving lot lines or
No.
building. Ultimately, if they wanted to put townhomes and it met the density requirements, they could put townhomes in this whole area.
That's something we can discuss during the rezoning, the next step with legal counsel. We're being told right now they're going to do single family, but through the rezoning, there could be a condition that limits it to that single family. Not at the general plan amendment, not at this stage, but at rezoning. Then we also have a subdivision plat process they need to come back through
There are
on.
really 3 steps to.
It's 3 steps and this is step 1.
Would there be another public hearing?
Yes,
Or
Yes.
there would be, okay, so
Yeah.
if there was a,
yes.
okay,
Yeah, the rezoning is going to require another public hearing and public meeting with the council after this process. So, and then a plat process.
perfect.
So,
That would be my only concern that if,
Clarification.
yeah, that we,
and that is something we've talked about. And so that's something we'll address at the rezoning.
perfect.
Anything else from anybody? Thanks, Jared.
For me.
Again, it's nice to see this use of the R16 right out of the chute when we were just getting green with it. And the affordability is going to be great. All right, have a motion from the commission.
Yeah, I'll recommend to the city council to approve the general plat amendment for the property located at 2276 Arrowhead Trail, subject to the 5 recommendations by city staff.
I'll second that.
First by Curtis and the second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, if any. Oh,
I was late. I meant aye. No nay.
all right, with that, it carries. Thank you, staff. Thanks, Jared. All right, our next public hearing is consider a proposed code amendment to Title 16 subdivisions and Chapter 17.04 general provisions of city code. This includes updates to the subdivision ordinance, zoning ordinance, and general cleanup. Santa Clara City applicant.
Thank you, Chair Hendrickson. And we had a good discussion 2 weeks ago on this item for those of us that were here. And there were some good comments made, and I've had a chance to meet with City Legal Counsel Matt Entz to go through that and vet that a little bit more. And so as you indicated, it is an update to Title 16, which is our subdivision ordinance, and then Chapter 1704 general provisions that kind of cross references with it. And so rather than just kind of read everything to you, I can kind of go through some of the things. I've identified the sections that are more of a rewrite, where others are just general cleanups. So as we talked about last time, 1616070 was the preliminary plat approval procedure, and we read through that procedure and change. Would the Planning Commission like me to read through that again? Have you all had an opportunity to review it? Okay. And then the final plat approval procedure is kind of very similar to that, but it's for final plat. And so we've made those changes. Now 1628020, both we had 2 commissioners, Commissioner Harris and Commissioner Blake, that asked about another form of guarantee, why we're not allowing for a letter of credit. I discussed that with City Legal Counsel Matt Entz, and he said we have to allow for 2 forms of guarantee. And so what we're proposing would be the cash and the escrow bond. However, if the Planning Commission would like to make a recommendation or the motion to consider the letter of credit as a third, we can proceed and forward that to the City Council for their consideration prior to adoption. We do have some of those. We did talk to our Public Works Director, Dustin Mortson. Most of what we get is cash with the escrow bond. We haven't seen a lot of letters of credit recently, but both Commissioner Harris and Blake told us they've seen those and have utilized those in the past. So that's something that we can take a look at if you'd like to recommend that we allow a third form of guarantee. Guarantee amount were the changes we talked about and went through last time, and the redlining, adding on to the 100% because we can only do the 100%. We can't do the 120 or 125, but we can add some fees associated with those amounts. We talked about the building of on an unsubdivided parcel. Cody had a chance to go through that with you a little bit at our last meeting as well. And then the adding on to section 170435, the land use decision and water acknowledgement. That's really key with the Washington County Water Conservancy District and all the changes that are going on right now. I've been informed in the last couple of weeks, the mayor has formed a working group, which Cody and I have both been on. There are some more changes being run through or contemplated with the Conservancy District right now. And more changes will come to our water. We just adopted it last February, but with some of the new changes that they're contemplating because of the drought conditions and bringing things down to less water per hookup or residence. They're looking at some more changes. And so we're going to probably in the next 3 to 6 months have to make some amendments to our water efficiency ordinance, as well as maybe some more changes in subdivisions. But in talking to legal counsel, our mayor who sits on this committee and reports to us, and Dustin Morrison and others, they feel that we're in line with what's needed for what we have, the information we have before us at this time. For both 1704-35 as well as 1704-220, that those are good things. Those are needed and necessary things that we need moving forward. So I wanted to remind the Planning Commission that this is a public hearing item for tonight. Staff's had an opportunity again to discuss this with the City Council on February 1st of 2023 during a work meeting. Additionally, this item was discussed with the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago on February 9th, 2023. Both the Council and Planning Commission were in favor of proceeding. We've addressed this and noticed it as per state statute. And staff recommends that the Planning Commission hold the public hearing and forward a recommendation of approval for these code amendments, Title 16 subdivisions and Chapter 1704 general provisions to the City Council. I did want to take one step back. There was a question asked by Logan Blake at the last meeting too about terminology, because Logan, recently we redid our design standards and you were part of our review committee. And we make reference in that document to an authorized or city representative. In this document, we're making reference to city engineer or authorized representative. I asked legal counsel Matt Entz if we should change the language to match. He said that it does not need to match, and he prefers the language in this document because it's city code as written, referring to the city engineer, who in our case is Sunrise, or an authorized representative who could be another individual there. And that's how he would prefer this ordinance move forward with that language, not changing it to match the design standards, which aren't actual development code or city code. So that was his answer to that. But he was fine with you recommending that we allow a letter of credit or third form if you feel comfortable. Recommend that, and we'll take it to the council for their consideration. So that's all I have on this one. We spent a lot of time reading through everything at the last meeting. Just let me know. Thank you, Chair Hendrickson.
Thank you, Jim. What's your recommendation on the letter of credit? We've got a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, Shelley.
I think it should be there.
If they're open to it, I think it's good. Do you actually have a form letter
We
that you're
do.
creating?
Yeah. Well, we talk about the change from time to time, and Matt's working on those updates. And we do have some letters of credit. We had an issue come up recently on one, just not as many. We get a lot of cash and a lot of escrow, but I've utilized that letter of credit. When I worked for Sandy, we took all three. We did not take sureties, and cities have moved away from sureties since that time, but a lot of cities haven't taken them for a long time. But I'm fine with three, but ultimately it's up to the council. I think if you recommend it, they'll probably allow it.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin?
Yeah, you don't take that?
That's kind of gone down lately, hasn't it?
I have a son-in-law that'd like to talk to you about that. It's not your one, that's your neighbor.
So you could make a recommendation to include that.
I think we need to, because it's consistent with what the our surrounding cities are doing.
Mhm.
Having used one recently
Okay.
in the city of St. George myself.
Okay.
So, but I don't know that.
Is it time to make that recommendation?
Now we need to open the public
Yes.
hearing first.
Yes.
Yeah. We need to finish the public hearing, which we do have anybody online.
Just ourselves.
Boy, this is really easy tonight. Knock on wood. With that, we'll close the public hearing and go to working agenda item A3. So we have any specific questions amongst ourselves in regard to these things? And then go back to the letter of credit I guess this is the time to make that recommendation and suggestion
Now, do we need to attach that if we want to do it to the?
Yeah, you would just add that to the
to
recommendation.
the recommendation.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any issues with a letter of credit, it pulling out after did you have issues with that up in Sandy?
I haven't, and I didn't see them, but they can be a little harder to draw on than an escrow is what
Because at least the bond is there.
Attorneys-
Bought that they paid.
what the attorney has said, and I've seen that, but it was nothing like a surety. I mean, they eventually paid. There we had a bond coordinator that worked on that. And we would hear some of the different things, but I didn't see it being a big problem. I've just heard cash and escrow are easier, but letter of credit makes sense too. So,
Yeah.
Because with the letter of credit, he gets in, let's say he gets in $1 million in the project, has that drawn out, has a whole bunch of work, and then decides to go belly up. The bank doesn't have to ultimately pay that, correct?
I refer to Shelley. Is that correct? Yeah.
If we issue a letter of credit to the city, then, you know, the same developer who went belly up signed the letter of credit, but we are obligated.
The lender's
Honor it.
guarantor.
Lender's obligated.
Well, the other
on
thing
it.
too is, unless I'm wrong about this, letter of credits, you actually have to have like a CD on file with the bank. Their money has to be there for them to want to issue it. There's not money backing it up. It's just a matter of who gets to hold on to the money and collect interest on it.
Not always, but,
Well,
but usually it's a deep.
But I'm gonna tell you that what you're talking about is not uncommon.
Yes.
So the city wouldn't be out if it would be the bank knowing that they were extending money, going to be losing that money and going back on the developer.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
how
the
it
letter
works.
of credit, the approval process it's granted to somebody who.
It's
we
pretty
are,
solvent.
Yeah, assured that they are not gonna go belly up.
So it's about as
Not
good
easy.
as a bond.
It's not easy to get a letter of
Okay.
credit.
Yeah,
Bankers are not cowards.
And we never want to see that, but on occasion it happens.
Won't lend to somebody they don't trust.
Yeah.
But once it's out there to a city and a city exercises it, we're obligated.
Okay, yeah, I feel comfortable with that also.
Okay, yeah, I'd be fine with it.
Okay, we have a motion from the committee.
All right, well, I'll make a recommendation to city council that we approve the code amendment to Title 16 for subdivisions, chapter 17.04 and provisions of the city code, including a recommendation that we make acceptance of a letter of credit
As a third item. What? As the third item.
as a third available option.
Okay.
I'll second motion.
We have a motion from Mark and a second from Curtis. All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Opposed, if any. That
So
carries.
One thing, Curtis, the letters of credit are only issued for a certain period of time. So the bank does have the option at the end of that time to notify the city and give them like this
Right.
letter of credit is not going to be renewed within 30 days or whatever.
Then there's a period of
Give them time to exercise something, yeah.
And there's a demand period of remedy.
So it's not just a open
Right.
forever.
Yeah, Matt said, you guys let us know, and you just have, so we'll relay that to the council.
Great.
Thank you.
All righty, going back to our agenda. Takes care of our general business items. Now moving on to planning commission approval for Great Clips wall signs at 3542 Pioneer Parkway, Suite 102. Brent Bateman and Adam Lyman with U Design are the applicants.
Thank you. I don't see the applicant online. I think that's okay. I've had a chance to talk to them quite a bit the last couple of weeks to get them to apply for the sign permit and bring it forward to you. As you know, the PDC zone requires a wall sign review as well as monument sign review by the planning commission. In this case, we have two wall signs that are proposed, one on the front elevation. In this case, the front elevation faces the interior parking lot of Harmon's. And then the rear elevation or back elevation faces Rachel Drive. The scale is a little bit different on these drawings, but both of these signs are the same size, 35 square feet. The calculations that were given to us by the sign company shows that they would be allowed up to 43 square feet per building elevation on both the east and west. They're showing it at 35 square feet, so it meets the wall sign requirement of not exceeding 10% of the square footage of the wall. They would also be internally illuminated with white letters. And so we've seen that recently. That's what we approved for Beans and Brews recently, the white pan channel letters of the internal illumination. You can see that here, the notes and the internal illumination that they're proposing. So we have two signs. They fall within the limits of the sign code. They both require internal illumination, a white light. Staff reviewed this and took it to TRC. We have no issues of concern associated with this application. As a result, planning staff recommends that the planning commission approve the proposed wall signs for the Great Clips located at 3542 Rachel Drive, Suite 102, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the west building elevation wall sign facing Rachel Drive be allowed at 35 square feet with internally illuminated white letters. Two, that the east building elevation wall facing Harmon's parking lot be allowed at 35 square feet with internally illuminated white letters. And third, that a building permit be applied for and obtained prior to placement of the wall signs on the building. And so that's all we have on this item.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
And this one is a planning commission approval item, so.
Seems pretty easy.
Commissioners, any questions?
No.
Okay, anybody want to make a recommendation?
I will motion to approve the Great Clips wall sign at 3452 Pioneer Parkway on Suite 102 as recently proposed.
I'll second that.
Great, we have a first motion to approve from Curtis and a second from Mr. Weston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any. Carries.
Thank you.
And back to our agenda,
Minutes.
just the minutes for approval. Anybody have any questions or any notes for these minutes? Well, since only two of you were there that are present,
Are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready if you're ready.
I move to approve the minutes as presented from February 9th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
I have a motion from Shelley to approve and a second from Logan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? And it carries. With that, do we have anything from the staff that we need to discuss?
All I need to mention is our next meeting will be in 2 weeks on March 9th. Will be our next meeting. Cody or Selena, did you have anything this evening? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
With that, we stand adjourned.
Boy, I've always wanted to do that. Use the gavel.
Oh, well.